Next up, our celebrity interview, and I tell you, there aren't that many people who I get really excited about meeting, but our next interviewee I was very, very excited about. Dame Tanni Grey-Thompson is one of our most celebrated Paralympic athletes. She's also an inspiration for people of all backgrounds. I met up with her at the British Library, and here's her story. So welcome, Tanni. Absolute pleasure to meet you. I first heard of you, I've got to say this, a few years ago when one of my clients, who I was working with on their business, I'd asked them who inspires them most. And a name which they said was Tanni Grey-Thompson. And I got a pretty strong hunch that this is the kind of thing that you hear time and time and time again. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's very nice, actually, for a start. But I think for me, my athletics career was first of all driven by me wanting to be a good athlete. And it was kind of very selfish in terms of everything I did was based around what I wanted to do, which was being good. So I didn't kind of try and set out to change anyone's view of disability sport or view of disabled people or disabled women, or you know, it was just about something that was what I wanted to do. So for me, it's kind of really nice to see that people have looked at bits of what I've done and say, well, actually, that has relevance to what I'm trying to do in my daily life.
Absolutely, and it does. I mean, I was reading Aim High just a while ago, and it was really interesting because I was really struck by those bits where we were talking about coaching and goals and all this kind of stuff. And there's a bit where I got a sense that you're quite clear that it's amazing that lots of people haven't got that sense of A, having a clear goal of what they want to achieve, B, taking the steps to do it, and measuring where they are and just moving forward to achieve that goal. Are you constantly surprised by how many people, whatever it is they're wanting to achieve, haven't got the first clue how to go about achieving that?
But I think it's probably natural for a lot of people not to understand how they need to get there. And I think for me, a lot of that sort of order came from my family background. So my dad was an architect and very practical, and everything about, you know, what Dad did was about you have to do things in steps. So, you know, you can't start building a building until you've actually done the drawing. So a lot of that kind of practicality came from my dad. But I think the difference is also in my sporting life, I found that kind of order very easy and very natural to do. And because it was about getting a tangible result. And for me, it was the only way I could ever achieve things, was to have this really definite plan and know where I was. But also what is kind of, there is definitely two parts to my life. There was, you know, kind of my sporting life and now my business life, which is very ordered and very organised, and I write lists and I have plans for everything. But then there's parts of my life that are just not ordered at all. So my family life is actually fairly chaotic. So it's, for me, it just seemed natural if I had this goal to achieve, which was about getting selected for GB, winning gold medals, breaking world records, the only way that was going to happen was to have a plan.
Unfortunately, we still live in a world in which you know, people with disabilities are largely invisible. We barely see them on television. I'm really interested to know, what kind of changes have you actually seen within sport, and what kind of changes, if any, have you seen broader since your career has grown and so on?
There have been a lot of changes within sort of the wider world in terms of accessibility and understanding. When I was a child, you didn't see disabled people particularly out on the street because that sort of wasn't sort of what was accepted. So it has got significantly better. But in terms of sport, it still is far more difficult for a disabled young person to access sports and PE through school or through mainstream athletics clubs. And it's about, for me, encouraging young people to actually have a dream and have aspirations.
And we've talked a lot about, and you used a phrase that I absolutely love, which is affecting change. And if there were, let's say, 1, 2 or 3 things that you could affect a change on, what would those things be?
Number one would be aspirations of young disabled people, because the disabled movement and those who are involved with it, and I'm sort of to sort of greater or lesser extent, we can't change the lives of the huge number of disabled young people that are out there. They need to affect some change for themselves because they're the ones who can fight it on a day-by-day basis. So for me, it would be to have young disabled people actually believing in themselves and in their rights to work, sport, education, jobs, housing, you know, just about them fighting for what they want to do. And a lot of the time, young disabled people don't have aspirations because they just think it's never going to happen, so why dream? So for me, that would be kind of number one on my list. And that would be the most important thing, I guess. Then it would be kind of number two, would be into a kind of sporting context, because if young disabled people have aspirations, they would then be knocking on the door of sports organisations saying, I want to do sport and I want to be fit and healthy and active. And it's not about necessarily competing at Paralympic Games, although that would be nice, but it's about having young disabled people who are fit and healthy and active, and all the spin-offs that then gives them in the rest of their lives in terms of being healthy. And actually, if I could do those two things, that would be quite nice. Whether it's ever going to happen, but for me, it's you kind of keep going, just keep going, and one day it may.
Well, thank you, and on behalf of all those people within sport, beyond sport, that you've inspired, Dame Tanni Grey-Thompson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.